Popular recording artist Tyga just admitted that he used Suno to help with some of the music on his new project. And his reasoning is something I think every producer and artist needs to hear. He's comparing AI to tools like Auto-Tune and basically saying, if the music sounds good, who really cares how it was made? Today I'm going to be reacting to hip-hop journalist Rob Markman, who's addressing some of the statements that Tyga has made. Make sure you stay tuned to the very end of this video because there's a lot of important information that you're going to need to know as a music creative. So without further ado, let's get into it.
In the interview, Tyga says that Scarface and Tyga are two different people. He said he had Scarface and the Purple Rain movie and Michael Jackson's Moonwalker movie playing in the studio as he made the album to capture a vibe. He said he was listening to Hall & Oates and Rick James and the Police and all this 80s stuff. And then Mikey asks, right? I'm going to read the question straight up. He says, I know it's a hot topic right now, so I have to ask, did you use Suno for assistance on any of the AI music programs? So Tyga asks, for sure. That's the thing. I've never spoken on this with anybody because I always felt like it's similar to a magician explaining how he does tricks. Like, why are people over explaining how they make shit that's good? If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I don't care. It's supposed to give you an experience and a feeling. But we definitely use AI as a tool, right? And the tool is in brackets, so it's implied. He might have said something else, but he said we definitely use AI as a tool. And I know people are going to be mad about me saying this, but it's where technology is going. It's no different than when Auto-Tune came out. Some people were opposed to it, but real artists took it and used it. We were like, you know what? I need some 80 cents for a certain part of the song. I need a guitar solo done ASAP. It is what it is. But as far as the writing or the vocals are all me. There's nothing wrong with using technology as a tool. At the end of the day, as a musician, I got 15 years of hits. On this Scarface project, we still created everything as a whole. I thought it was a great experience. Scarface can do whatever the fuck he wants to do. He's on his own wave. He's above it all. It's a completely different thing.
Okay, so it sounds like Tyga is using platforms like Suno almost like a replacement for a session musician to do guitar parts and synth parts. So my question would be, are those guitar parts and synth parts, are those something that Tyga or somebody else in the studio created themselves? Maybe they hummed it and like, let's do it like do 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 do, and then they use platforms like Suno to actually compose the music? Or is it just something that they went ahead and prompted? Do this 80s style synth and let's put it right here in the song. Because if it's something that they created, then of course that's fine. But if it's something that he just prompted, then it's essentially a form of sampling. So at that point, you know, Tyga himself can possibly find himself in some type of legal trouble if some of those synth parts or guitar parts are found to be, you know, lifted essentially from somebody's record. And that's something that a lot of people don't really recognize or realize, that if there's a legal issue, it's going to be between the original creator and you, the user of a platform like Suno. Suno is not going to be able to, they're not going to help you out in the process. Just saying I don't know or I didn't know is not going to help you in any type of legal proceedings, especially something like someone at a level like Tyga. He also mentioned that, you know, Suno is similar, or AI is similar to something like Auto-Tune, which isn't true. Auto-Tune is modulating and pitch shifting your voice, and then people, of course, like T-Pain and of course before then whatever, are using it as an effect on the actual human voice. So it's not generative. So that's not really a apples to apples comparison. I've seen people try to make similar comparisons, but they're not, they don't quite match up. And on top of that, you know, Tyga, I believe, is in a place like LA. There's a lot of session musicians in LA who would, man, they would easily run down to whatever studio Tyga is at to come play some 80s style synth, come play the guitar, and more than likely they won't even charge that much. They just want the credit, want the shout out so they can get more work. So when it comes to these AI platforms, there's also the disconnection between other people, and you never know who you can meet through who from just doing some simple studio work, and then before you know it, that session musician can help on other records, and maybe they play other instruments, and you guys can actually form a real bond and a real musical type of family. But with platforms like Suno, then it's really cutting out that human element. But you know, that's some of the pros and cons of using these type of tools. But let's get back into the video.
He's saying he did the writing, he did the vocals, and used AI for some 80s synths and a guitar solo that he needed ASAP. And he compared it to Auto-Tune, which I don't agree with. The Auto-Tune point. They're similar in the fact that they're both technological innovations that change how music sounds and change how music was created when Auto-Tune really took off, or, you know, in terms of AI will change how music is created. I mean, it's changing it now. But the Auto-Tune takes your voice, it takes your performance, it takes what you put out and adjusts the pitch and the frequency, thus altering the sound. You know what I'm saying? Like tell me if I'm wrong, and I'm truly asking this. If there's any engineers in here, tell me if I'm wrong. But with the right gear, rack mounts, like, you know, you twist the knobs, you change the frequencies of what's already recorded. I believe you can achieve what Auto-Tune achieves. Auto-Tune just achieves it faster, right? It takes the thing and just changes the frequencies to pitch you and get your tune right? And that was controversial when it first started popping off. You know, really after T-Pain did it. T-Pain wasn't the one who started it, but T-Pain was the one who like really popularized it. Turned out T-Pain really could sing. It just gave him a certain type of sound, but it turned all these artists who weren't singers into singers now because the Auto-Tune kind of pitched them in a way and became the thing to do. So it was controversial for sure. And there's a lot of people against Auto-Tune, but it's not the same. It's the same in that they're both technologies, but it's not the same. The issue is many of these AI models like Suno have been trained off of other people's music to create that guitar solo that Tyga wanted to achieve, or to create that 80s synth, right? They might have taken it from a Jimmy Jam or Terry Lewis or Prince when you talk about 80s synths. Or when you talk about guitar solos, they might have trained off of Slash from Guns N' Roses, right? So the AI is not magic, right? It just doesn't magically, you say, hey, 80s guitar solo, and it gives you, and it just creates one. It is trained. It is learning. It's scraping. It's doing the data scraping of all the 80s guitar solos, and it's giving you an amalgamation of one. Now. Some people say, well, isn't that what humans do? Like,
you know, that gets me thinking about producers like Dr. Dre, who, you know, are notorious for using session musicians. More specifically, we could think about people like Scott Storch, who of course became a mega producer, and also Mike Elizondo, who of course grew to be a mega producer. And that gets me thinking, like, if Dr. Dre had access to a tool like Suno back in the day, back when he was making albums like The Chronic 2001, would he have ever met these people? Would he have ever made the call out to find a piano player like Scott Storch? You know, there's a story about Scott Storch doing the piano line to Still Dre. Ding, bling, 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 bling. And Dre popped his head in like, oh, let's keep that part. You know, would those magical moments ever even happen? Because he could just sit there and type and prompt and prompt and prompt. And it's almost like a self-indulgent type of thing. You're not working with another person and feeding off their energy. So that gets me a bit concerned about the producers coming up who could possibly meet their production partner or a musician that they work with, and then they can of course build their network together. It's almost like the ease of access could have negative consequences that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about. They just think about the here and now, the instant gratification, and not thinking about some of the long-term consequences. So let's get back into the video.
Some people say, well, isn't that what humans do? Like if I was a guitar player, right, a new age guitar player, and they said, hey, give me an 80s guitar solo, I'm making a guitar solo based off of all the shit that I heard growing up in the 80s, right? Like, oh, okay, but you're still making it your own. That's how human inspiration works. And that's different from sampling. This is something different, man. This is something different, and there's rights issues to all of this, and we'll get into that a little bit later. The other thing, though, is how it replaces human art. Tyga is in LA. My assumption, right, is that he or his team could put a call out and get a pretty dope guitarist to come in and lay that for them. And pretty quickly, right? Or someone to come in and play those 80 synths. Tyga is established, like he said, has been in the game 15 years. His team didn't get 15 years in the game by accident. They have connections, studios, somebody who knows somebody. They're in LA. They could have got somebody to play those instruments, right? And again, it's the replacing. There was a human who could have did that for you, but you had the machine do it for you. Auto-Tune didn't create the voice. The voice was you. You put that into a mic. Auto-Tune just shapes the voice to make it something you want, but it's still a human doing the songwriting. It's still a human doing the singing. It's something different. This is replacing human art. There was a human that could have came in, and let's be real, could have got paid. And a session musician, if somebody else wrote the music, you might pay a couple of $100 if somebody just comes in and lays something down or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, Rob is definitely making some good points there. There's no way that an artist like Tyga, especially with some of the studios he's more than likely working out of, couldn't easily get access to a very talented session musician, and who knows what other doors that would have opened for Tyga as a business, as a recording artist, what kind of opportunities that could have opened up for the session musician. I like using session musicians from time to time, and sometimes we run into happy accidents. They do things in a way that I didn't think that they were going to do it, and I'm telling them to do something in a certain way, that we run into these happy accidents, these magical moments that it's like, let's keep that, and it's something that I may not have came up with myself. And if we're using platforms like Suno, it's just like we're prompting, everything is perfect. Bam, that's the perfect lead synth that I wanted. I'm just dragging and dropping it in. Oh, that's perfect. Everything is exactly what I want, and there's no challenging. There's no pushback. There's no maybe let's try it like this. I know you wanted that 80s synth, Tyga, but when I do it, let me modulate it like this. Let's run it through a pedal, and let's just try that. Let's just try it, and then if we don't like it, we just go ahead and delete it out of Pro Tools. We'll just go ahead and delete it. Things like that. Those experiences, unfortunately, are going to be robbed from people just simply for the sake of convenience. And that's a huge issue for me personally. It's just like that convenience is actually hurting people, and I don't think too many people are actually seeing that. But let's get back into the video.
Or if they're totally just writing you something new, hey, it'll cost you a bit of the publishing on the publishing end or whatever it is. But there's humans that could have done that, and it wasn't like super expensive. It doesn't necessarily break the bank, right? Now, going back to AI, I do think AI is a tool. I agree with that 100%. I do think AI is not only inevitable, it's here. It's not on the way, it's here. It's being used right now. As a music fan, right, though, I question this. With so many real artists out there, why do we need robot ones? And also just knowing my POV is more than a music fan. I work in music. I'm an artist myself, and I believe that I'm also an advocate for art. But ultimately, right, it's y'all that decide. It's the audience that decides what they will and won't accept. And while a number of y'all in the comments, I know I can predict it already, will say, hey, you're against AI in music. You're not with it. You don't want to hear that shit. There are many, many fans who do not give a shit. There are many fans who will say, yo, if it sounds good, who cares how it was made? I don't care how it was made. I like the song. It sounds good. But it's that dynamic that will determine how far it goes. It's the dynamic between the audience. That's why I said in the headline, who cares? Because if you really care, if the audience really cares, there'll be a pushback against this. If the audience just goes along and says, I don't really care how it made me feel good, I love it, blah, 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 and it'll continue to go on. So when I say who cares, that's not a sarcastic question. This is literally an audience. Who cares? Because the audience determines. Y'all determine what we will and won't accept.
That's an interesting point that Rob made. Who really cares? As producers, as music creatives, songwriters, and artists, a lot of times, sometimes we're in our own little bubbles. Sometimes even our Instagram algorithm, our YouTube algorithm, everything is catered towards the things that we like. So we're seeing the different talking points. We're seeing the different videos on new gear and new microphones and, performing and songwriting. So we're in our little narrow bubble, our little silo. So we don't understand. Sometimes we don't really understand the actual much larger musical consumption base, which is way larger than the actual music makers. We can feel like our community is much bigger than what it actually is, but there's more people out there who are just working out, looking for something to listen to while they're lifting weights, while they're going on a walk, while they're driving their kids to school. Hey, if the music sounds good, hey, I really don't care. And then, of course, you have the subset of people who are music consumers who actually do care about it. Maybe they used to do music as a child or as a teenager. Maybe they do music a little bit on the side here and there. Or maybe they're just huge music buffs. They're actually people who care about the backstory of the recording artist and how they got to where they're actually at currently today. So, I think that segment of people is going to actually more than likely care about what's generated by AI, because there's certain, philosophical views around music creation that may bump up against AI music. But I've done a reaction video of a content creator speaking about being at a restaurant and noticing the background music that was playing was AI. It was just so generic. He could just pick up on it. He was able to figure out that it was actually AI music. But he's a musician himself. Sorry, I can't recall the name of the content creator at the moment. But the other people, his friends, his family, didn't know it was AI. Asked him how he could tell it was AI, and they really didn't care that much. It was just kind of background music that was playing. But as a producer who does have music sync placements on different TV networks, I'm like, hey, that's, you call that background music. I call that, an income stream, which, of course, unfortunately, may even get taken away from, independent artists, producers, people who are creating music. Those opportunities may start to get more and more narrow the more the copyright issues that come with creating AI music starts to, get closed. So there's going to more than likely be less opportunities for jingles and TV and film sync opportunities. So it's like Mark said, we have to remember where we are. Where's our position in this entire landscape of what's happening with AI music? Because we can't just always see things from the perspective as music creators. We need to see things from the perspective of the actual consumer. But let's get back into the video.
Y'all determine what we will and won't accept, what is and what isn't the future of music by what you consume. What I do believe has to happen, though, is that it has to be regulated. So rights holders can be compensated for the music that built these models. You're not going to put a dent in human art. You're not going to replace human art. You're not going to take humans out of the studio and then do it for free. Those 80 cents that you used AI to create, that model was trained off of something real. It was trained off of somebody's real art. How do they get compensated for that? That's something that we have to continue to figure out. Secondly, I would say be real about it. I would say, hey, Tyga was real about it. Tyga came out and said what it was. Yes, I used AI. For weeks, maybe a month and a half, Phoenix Flexing and Purpose on the Beat, the producer, was saying no, this wasn't AI. Now he's saying I never said I never used AI. And it's starting to get confusing. Just be straight up with it. And then let the people decide. If you honestly feel like there's nothing wrong with using AI in your music, why lie about it?
The reason some people are going to lie about using AI in their music is that there's still a lack of a coolness factor. Something about using AI in your music, just amongst creatives, music creators, especially more specifically, is seen as uncool, is seen as lame, is seen as something that's cheesy and something that cornballs, used because they don't actually have real musical talent. That's what the perspective of the, that's kind of the deeper reasoning why creatives would lie about using AI in their music. And he said perps on the beat. Is that the same? Are we talking about the same perps on the beat from SoundClick way back in the day? I remember seeing him on SoundClick back in the day. So it's kind of interesting, man, if that is the same perps on the beat. Rob Markman also touched on disclosing that things have AI in it. And to me, I just want to take it a bit further. I think music that's put out there needs to be some type of tag that says this contains AI elements or this is an AI generated song. Just give people the opportunity to know what they're about to consume is actually AI created. I understand that people are going to feel offended, or people are going to feel a certain type of way about it. But I think we just need to have that consent disclosed to people. Before I click on the song, I want to know whether or not there's AI elements in it. Some people don't care. Some people care a lot. Some people are so-so, depends on what the song sounds like. But at the end of the day, people, at least in my view, need to be aware of what's in the actual music. And then also Rob talked about, the actual music creators not being compensated for the fact that their music was used to train the models. That's huge. Of course, when it comes to music, especially more specifically hip hop, there's been all kinds of issues with producers, lifting parts off of certain records, then the lawsuits coming, and we've all heard the stories, and sometimes people had to replay stuff to get over some different copyright issues. So I feel like the same thing needs to hold true for these different generative music AI platforms. There needs to be some type of compensation, some type of credit to them. And I've heard the argument that it's trained off of so much. How can they possibly credit the right people? How can they possibly pay the right people? I'm hearing that they're in $1 billion range as a company. More specifically, Suno. You have those resources. Brainiacs can get in the corner, come up with something, and find a way to compensate the people properly. I trust that you guys have the genius to figure that out. Somehow you guys can figure that out. But let's go ahead and get back into the video.
Why lie about it? Why go through those lengths to lie about it if you honestly feel like there's nothing wrong with using that AI music? You ain't gotta lie, like stand on it. Then there's another part of it that I wonder, and I don't have any proof for this, so this is pure speculation, and I'm not putting this on anybody because I don't have the proof. But were any of these artists paid to use the AI model, right? If I was interviewing Tyga, I would ask him, or Phoenix, I would ask him. But especially Tyga, because he admitted it. Were you paid by the AI companies to use these models to create music? Because it isn't far-fetched that an AI company would pay an artist to create a proof case for a successful song which was made using AI. And then they could attract more artists to use their product. Basically, artists getting paid as spokespeople, getting paid to normalize it. Again, I don't know if Tyga or Phoenix are being paid by these AI companies. I haven't seen anything that suggests that they are. But just the way that business works, it's not far-fetched that these AI companies would find someone to pay to be an artist ambassador to normalize it, especially if you get like Billboard success and because once you got a legit hit record, I think a lot of other artists who come under will then look for a shortcut. It's happening already without the hit record. But if you get a proof case of saying, hey, through AI, we were able to make a top 40 hit, top 10 hit, number 1 hit. Game is follow the leader. Music game is follow the leader.
Wow, that's an interesting point, man. I actually didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. And that actually touches on the coolness factor that I just spoke about a moment ago. People are generally going to do things that they, especially when it comes to music, when it comes to art, we want things to not be lame. We want things to not be cheesy. And like Rob is mentioning here, there could be possibly, like you said, he's speculating, not being accusatory, but there's the possibility that this could be somewhat of an underhanded marketing scheme to kind of open in the door for the coolness factor. So, Tyga's a cool artist. He makes cool music. He got a lot of hit records. If he admits to using it, why don't you guys use it too? Are you better than him? Are you more skilled than him? Can you make more hits than him? Go ahead and give it a try. Let's see what comes out. That's an interesting perspective. I didn't see things that way, but I'm definitely putting that in the back of my head now. You never really know, man. You never really know. But let's get back into the video.
Everybody was skeptical about auto-tune, and boy, once T-Pain started racking up those hits, everybody was using it. You know what I'm saying? Like so, because it's one thing in this business is most artists, a lot of artists, good chunk of artists, good chunk of the business is always chasing that hit. And even if you as an artist draw a line and say, hey, I'll never use an AI to make my music, the record companies, the right holders, the whoever, because they want that hit, will find an artist willing to do that. Or just do it themselves and cut the artist out. You know what I'm saying? Why do I got to sign a human? I remember the Timbaland thing. Look at the Timbaland thing. Timbaland, because we talked about it before, Timbaland and that AI artist Tata. Boy, that didn't amount to nothing. I remember watching Ray Daniels and Timbaland talk about it. And Ray had said something, and Ray Daniels is a industry veteran, you know what I'm saying? Has been in and out of these labels, has been involved in the creations of songs, managing artists, managing songwriters, putting hit songs together, being in the room in the studio when these songs are getting created. Ray has said something that stuck with me is he said, hey man, the AI artists don't talk back. Insinuating that, hey, it's easier to deal with the computer and rather than, you know what? When I'm an artist, sometimes I'm depressed. Sometimes it's my mental health. Sometimes, hey, I don't feel like being in the studio today. Hey, sometimes you walk in the studio, it's like, man, I ain't got it today. I ain't got the inspiration. Whatever. Sometimes it's like, as a manager or an A&R, you're like, hey, I need you, artist that I just signed and gave this advance to, I need you to do this song. I'm not feeling that.
Standing on business as a music artist, there's the competition factor. Even as an indie artist or indie producer, if other people are using, generative AI platforms like Suno or whatever, and let's just say they're just having a higher output than you, and then the demand of other things within how you're working is just getting greater and greater, and then the pressure just starts to get heavier and heavier. You're not able to keep up with the competition because you're standing on this ethical grounds. The business competition aspect can actually either push you out or force you to start to adapt and adopt with the wave of the future. And this is going to be more so compounded for people who are in the major label race, people who are, making comments. Not too long ago, Kehlani made comments about AI that really wasn't too favorable, and a lot of creatives were like, hey, that's a good position to have. And I think it is a good position to have ethically as a pure creator, someone like Kehlani. But then that begs the question, what's going to happen in the future as there are more AI artists, as there are more people at the label who are looking to take shortcuts to actually compete? How are people going to position themselves in the market ethically, business-wise, brand-wise, all while maintaining their fan bases, but at the same time not slipping all the way behind where they're just, no one's really paying attention to them. So it's an interesting balance to kind of walk. It's an interesting kind of rope to walk as technology starts to change, as the taste of the people starts to change, and as the pressures just start to get heavier and heavier. Can you actually stand on business? Well, that comes with actual pressure. That's when you can actually see if you can stand on business, when you're actually being pushed to get off of the business that you're standing on. Are you going to stand strong, or are you going to start to move? Are you going to start to sway? What exactly are you going to do? So, definitely a tough position to be in, man. Definitely tough. But let's get back into the video.
About something like nothing on you, right? Was it Nothing on You? I think it was Nothing on You, the B.O.B. song that was a big hit with Bruno Mars, right? The word is that went to Lupe Fiasco first. And Lupe might have cut it, but it never came out with Lupe. So all right, we just need another artist to cut it. They found B.O.B. They found an artist that was willing to cut it. But when Ray Daniels had said, I remember it, I think it was on the IG Live, he said, man, the AI doesn't talk back. So what I'm saying is that once you get to that proof case, once you start to prove that you can get real hit records with these AI, and then these record labels start to be like, oh, we could get hit records and I don't have to pay in advance to the artist. Or I don't have to deal with when the artist has an attitude or a mental health issue, or when the artist is just like standing on their artistic shit and say, no, I don't want to do that record. What do you think they're going to choose? It's the music business. But again, going back to the title of this video is who cares? And not in the sarcastic way. Who cares? Do y'all care? If y'all care, this thing won't go so far. If the audience says, hey, we don't care how it's made, then you're looking at and you're listening to the future of music, but it's up to y'all.
All right, guys, a lot of powerful points raised here by Rob Markman. Guys, what do you think? Do you think there's going to be more AI music artists coming out who are actually cool, who are actually more accepted by the mainstream? You know, first, like you mentioned, the Timbaland's artist Tata didn't really go anywhere, but there's newer stuff coming out that people are starting to gravitate towards. Do you think that's the future of music? Or do you think people are going to start to go niche, you know, kind of pull back, kind of go back to the underground a little bit, and you know, people really getting back out there, maybe even buying CDs, buying vinyls, and really supporting people hand to hand? How exactly are you guys seeing things? And you as a creative, all the creatives out there, producers, songwriters, recording artists, how are you going to deal with AI? Are you using it as a tool to kind of help you, just a little additive? Are you flipping samples? Are you using it to create hooks? How exactly are you using AI? So guys, please, we have to keep this conversation going. The music game is constantly changing and we have to keep each other informed. Thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. My name is Desmond A, and I'll be back with more great videos. Peace.